All right, so here we are on the second floor. Obviously, we've made some modifications to the corridor itself. We're doing lots of wall reframing. Here on the second floor has the majority of the new construction and demolition. We're modifying the layout of a lot of the rooms, as well as modifying the ceilings, HVAC, electrical, and new lights, things of that nature. We've laid down a whole bunch of new plywood underlayment here across the floors everywhere. One of the things that we discovered when we were doing demolition was that some of the existing substrate, some of the surfaces down there that the old flooring was attached to was not in great shape. So we made the decision early on to put down new underlayment everywhere so that we've got something brand new, something good that the new flooring material can grip onto. One of the things that St. Ignatius was most interested in was, as we peel back the layers of existing construction, what sort of unique features are we going to find inside the building? And one thing that they specifically asked us to look for was any existing brick structures inside the building. If we find anything, bring it to their attention so we can talk about it. What can we do to restore those kinds of surfaces to keep them exposed for the future? So in particular, we've got this brick column right here, as well as these faces on this pastor right here. We're going to keep these exposed. They're going to get cleaned up, what we call tuck pointed, to address some of the joints to get them dressed up and keep them looking good. These will be exposed as part of the new construction for everyone to see. Additionally, when we started opening up some of the ceilings, we can see that there really is quite a lot of headroom above ceiling inside these spaces. They got 15 foot from floor to deck above us. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to maintain that kind of head height in the space going forward. We do have to have new drop ceilings that are going to be installed to, hide all the ductwork and all the plumbing and all the piping. But for now, everybody really likes the tall ceilings because it creates, a much larger space, or it feels a lot larger than the existing space was prior to. Over in this area, what used to be regular classrooms, we've now created more of a community space for small groups to gather here. It's sort of an open space kind of concept. This will be a new small group room right here for 3 to 4, 5, 6 students max to occupy that space for a small group breakout session. This will be the new tutoring room as well, with a large glass wall separating the room from the larger corridor itself. There's an awful lot of ductwork that's existing that we didn't necessarily know about. These 3 large trunks in particular were a fun little thing that we found inside the walls. Obviously they are coming from the rooftop units up above, and they have to be maintained. Ideally, this corridor would have maintained its constant width from one end to the other, but the realities of construction dictate that if you've got ductwork that's servicing the floors above and below, you got to keep it. As we move on down towards the other end of the corridor, we've taken what was the teacher workroom before, and we've totally gutted the space, and we're going to be remodeling it into a new teacher workroom. Right now you can see that we've got these brackets in the wall that will be supporting the new countertop that's going to go all around the room on 3 sides. We'll have additional countertops on this wall as well. Where there used to be a staff restroom over here will now just be a sink with, I believe, a mini fridge under the cabinet as well. This is an interesting room in here. I think years ago, this must have been one of the classrooms where they were teaching religious studies, would be my guess, because as we remove the existing ceilings in this space, we can see on the walls, painted up on the walls, is various religious iconography from Judaism and Taoism and all those other things. And it was neat to see some of that stuff painted on the walls above to get a feel for what these spaces may have been used for, centuries or decades ago. And we can see also in this space that there was another brick arch up high on the wall at one point that was filled in back in the 80s in the last renovation that, unfortunately, if we were to open it up now, you'd have a big gaping hole in your wall in this classroom. So previously the corridor was very zigzaggy. I'm not sure what the architects were thinking in the 1980s when they renovated that space prior to, but we've since taken all the zigzag out of there, so this will be a much smoother, more streamlined corridor for the students to traverse through in between classes. Up on the 3rd floor is, from an architectural and demolition and new construction standpoint, a simpler renovation than the 2nd floor. It's much more dramatic what we're doing downstairs, with all the walls changing and new walls going up, whereas the 3rd floor was much better established with the current existing architecture in terms of classrooms and corridor space. So we haven't really demolished a whole lot of walls on the 3rd floor. We're mostly just reskinning them, refreshing them to make them look newer, modern, and more functional. So likewise, on the second floor, we removed all the lockers. These were where the lockers were before on the third floor. However, there won't be lockers going back in their place. There's going to be some benches or other furniture, maybe some cafe tables, something like that. It'll be tucked up under these little nooks with some overhead lighting and things like that for students to read a book, study, do their homework, whatever. This is a typical classroom on the third floor. Not much is changing architecturally. The shape of the room isn't changing. It's the same square footage and the same shape for the most part. However, we are hanging all new drywall around the exterior walls in this room as well as every other room. Additionally, all the exterior windows in all the classrooms are being replaced. So not every window is going to be operable like before, but most of them will be with crank handles, kind of like that one right there. Whiteboards. All the existing whiteboards that are here are going to remain. However, they will be reskinned with new whiteboard surfaces. We're going to be resurfacing these whiteboards and the tack boards, as well as adding additional whiteboards in every room for the teachers to utilize. Pre-Civil War era, they'd had these 15-foot high ceilings everywhere because they didn't have air conditioning or anything like that at the time. But as we get into the modern era, well, the windows can really highlight for you, exactly what it looked like in here back in the 1800s. The windows go all the way up about a foot or so shy of the ceiling above. Modern days, you'd never know that because the ceilings always stopped at that divider between the clear glass and the screen above. So these ceilings originally were open all the way up. But as we come up with new inventions like air conditioning and, ductwork, that stuff needs to occupy a space. And this building just wasn't built to accommodate those sorts of things back in the late 1800s. So unfortunately, the windows and the head height had to be sacrificed in order to have modern conveniences such as that. So then we install a new ceiling below it, which lowers the head height to about 10 feet. So this week we passed our first framing inspection as well as an in-wall electrical inspection. We're wrapping up drywall finishing and drywall hanging downstairs on 2 this week. We're going to continue to do drywall finishing for the next week or so, and then we're going to have our electrician and our mechanical contractor modifying the existing ductwork and extending those HVAC systems above ceiling, as well as getting the electrical infrastructure installed above the ceilings as well. Once that is done, we'll pass some above ceiling inspections for mechanical and electrical, and then we'll start hanging new ceilings everywhere. It'll be grid and tile acoustic ceilings like we've seen before. It'll have a nice tegular tile, so it'll be a nicer ceiling system. Once the grid's in, we start hanging light fixtures, dropping grills, registers, and diffusers in the ceiling. At that stage, we should be putting paint on the walls. And once everybody is done working above ceiling or in the ceiling, then we'll come through installing new carpet, new tile. So for the next few weeks, we're going to continue with some of the rougher construction with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, drywall, and acoustic ceilings, and then we'll be off and running into finishes, cabinets, casework. We've got new wood doors coming at all the door openings. They'll be stained wood doors and they'll be very, very nice. And then we start getting things like whiteboards and other furnitures, fixtures, and devices like that. And in time for the start of the 2023-2024 school year.